Welcome into Floyd Street's Finest. Yes, we're back. He is Coach Lieberman, former Louisville basketball assistant. I am merely Jack Grossman. And, Coach, it's been too long, man. Excited, though, to get back on the saddle, start podcasting, talking some Louisville hoops in a season across the landscape of college basketball that's going to be absolutely electric. And I don't know if there's a place that there's more excitement and more desire to win and get back on the mountaintop than the University of Louisville, where they're at right now. And man, it's going to be a lot of fun with the team that Pat Kelsey's built this year.
First off, it's not mere Jack Grossman; it's the Jack Grossman. Let's get something clear. It's great. It's back where it should be, and it's fun because the expectations now. Everybody expects wins. Everybody expects a deep run in March. That's how it's supposed to be, and the roster is built that way, and the pieces are in place, and now it's ready to, it's almost ready to kick off.
Yeah, for those who might have forgotten, because it has been a little bit, this is Floyd Street's Finest, part of the Field 68 podcast network. Really, really excited to be a part of that, continuing our partnership there. He is once again Mark Lieberman. I'm Jack Grossman. You can follow us on Twitter at Jack Grossman97 and at Coach Lieberman. I'm also on Blue Sky. I guess I should probably start using that again since we're getting this going. At Jack Grossman there as well. Like, subscribe, follow Floyd Street's Finest, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you're consuming this. We're going to be having a lot of fun this year talking Cardinal basketball. As you said, Coach, it is loaded with some talent coming back and an absolutely stacked transfer class as well. Malik, the backcourt. Let's just start with the backcourt here.
Sure. I mean, look, you've got just being able to watch Mikael Brown work this summer, and everybody's seen him on film, and everybody's watched him play overseas in the events with the the under 19 team and whatnot.
He was fantastic across the pond in that.
He was amazing, and he moved so well without the ball. I mean, obviously he's a point guard, but you just watch him play off the ball as well. And I think they'll get back to what Coach Kelsey really wants, is a team that really just gets out and goes, and it really doesn't matter who has the ball and the pace of play. Look, what he did last year with a limited roster because of injuries, and really had to morph into what they were, which is really not what he wanted, just to play faster, play a lot of guys, play 10 or 11, and play deep and get up and down as much as possible. And when you get Mikael, but then you have, with Conwell, it was just, I think, is just an absolute beast. You just watch him, just the way he stampedes on catches and just able to get downhill and able to shoot the basketball with McNeely. And no one's talking about Kobe Rogers. And obviously, with Woolley as well. I mean, the backcourt is really strong, and all these pieces are interchangeable. So when people say, well, who's the one, who's the two, who's the three, I really don't think it matters. You're just going to play really fast. You're going to get guys in spots. We learned last year how well he is at getting guys to play without the basketball in their hands. Just imagine what they're going to do with this much athleticism and talent.
Right. You mentioned the depth. Obviously, that was the big thing last year. I mean, the case and prior injury, all the stuff Louisville went through on that end. Corin Johnson as well. Well, in the backcourt, last season, Louisville was 90th in adjusted tempo and 89th in average possession length. That was the slowest tempo that we've seen from a Pat Kelsey coach team in the last decade. He wants to play faster than what they did last year. They played fast-ish last year, especially early in the season. But when you have Mikael Brown, when you have Conwell, Woolley, Isaac McNeely stepping into that Rain Smith role, all these guys out there, they're here to push the ball. Javon Hadley back as well. They're really going to try to run you out of the gym in terms of getting up and down, playing at a really fast pace, getting up a lot of shots. And it's going to be a fantastic, really visually pleasing brand of basketball to watch.
Yeah, I didn't mention McNeely and Hadley, again, is just one of those guys that he's the cliche or the term that's thrown around, glue guys. Like, he gets it. He's a guy that understands what Coach Kelsey wants. You saw him in a different capacity. Obviously, when he was playing with Colorado, as a guy that can get out and knock down shots and play faster, and uses his body well, kind of positionless as well, because he's kind of in between. But another guy that gets it. And watching him work out this summer, I mean, another guy that looks great. And their pace of play, Jack. I mean, Coach Kelsey talked about it. Like, some of those guys couldn't even practice at the end of the year because you just got to keep them healthy. I mean, those guys were, the minutes they were playing and how they guarded, and now. You're really in basketball, Jack, when you play that hard and his teams do, and you defend, you really can't be on the floor for more than 5 or 6. You need to blow. And now, you can bring in 2 or 3 guys. And you saw him early on trying to do that and instill that type of environment. And these guys will understand that through practice habits, through film, through them just talking about it, even at this point in the season, in pre-practice and whatnot, as far as what their roles are going to be. So guys can play 20, 25 minutes and really be impactful, which is what he wants out of this group.
What do you see Javon Hadley's role being on this team? Because, you have all the backcourt guys we talked about. Louisville's loaded with bodies in the front court, a little less proven than the backcourt guys, but a lot of potential in the front court as well. Hadley's a dude that can fit in so many different places, and I think it's something that'll change game by game, matchup by matchup as you're seeing. But how do you see his role on this team playing out?
Yeah, first of all, he's the guy that comes back and no matter what, knows the system, knows the terminology, knows the verbiage, understands what Coach Kelsey expects in everything, whether it's in a team meeting, whether it's a practice setting. He understands how to set a tone. So when you have a guy like that, and defensively, he was really good last year as well. And he's a guy that this group can really switch and do different things. And again, he's not limited offensively. You saw him be able to get around the basket, use his size to run to rim and actually post sometimes and play on the perimeter. I think his perimeter skills are kind of something people forget about. I think he's a guy that can do some things, catch and shoot. I know he's working on that as well. So I think there's a multitude of things he can do to impact winning for this team this year. And the biggest thing is he's a guy that gets it. He's older, and he's been there. So I think he's going to have a huge, as I said, impact, but a lot of ways that he can affect winning.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to I know Doster and Goodman, the Field 68 guys, did their road trip when they went through Louisville. The thing that honestly, of all the interviews and stuff they did that stood out the most was them asking Javon Hadley, like, "Hey, you're coming back. This team's absolutely loaded. We know you're trying to get to the pros." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't need my stats, man. I know there'll be games where I score 20, there'll be games I'll score 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to, help the team win." And that's something that you get with the maturity that you don't always get. I know John Calipari, Kentucky, made a living trying to get that buy-in from freshmen, but when you have that veteran leadership, the guy coming back, that, as you said, understands the system, understands his role, knows that he can impact winning in so many different ways, he really becomes a glue guy on a roster with so much talent and so much expectation.
Oh, absolutely. And he's mature and just being around him a little bit from the TBT and just watching some of the workouts. He's a guy that's in there. He was getting shots up. He understands that, and physically he's gotten stronger. And to have a guy like that on the team, and you said it, he gets it. So when you're looking at for the pro standpoint, they don't care if you're scoring 25 points a game. They just want to see if you know how to distribute, if you know how to run, you can have to play without the basketball, how good you are at your shot release, how quick that is. The little things that are just meticulous with details. And this is the young man that can absolutely do those type of things. So, having a guy is a comfort for a coach. You have a guy that, okay, can be the first guy in a drill, can be the first guy in a meeting after you leave that's going to say, hey, this is what he wants. This is what he meant by this. And that's so big that people just don't get it.
Yeah, and he's someone defensively too, like you mentioned. The game I always go back to was last year when Louisville was playing North Carolina, and yes, you have Chucky Hepburn, who was one of, if not the best on-ball defenders in college basketball, trying to chase and defend R.J. Davis for a full 40 minutes because of Louisville's injury situation. You're playing Chucky the entire game. You can't have him guard RJ Davis for an entire basketball game and also have him do everything that they needed him to do on the offensive end. Javon Hadley being able to step in and say, hey, I can take RJ Davis for the majority of a second half and really lock him down.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's one of those oh wow moments. Like RJ Davis is gone from North Carolina this year, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's a dude that can step in, can play that role, and also go back. I think it was the Clemson game a couple days later. I think is what he had 30, 32, whatever the heck it was, his high of the season. So setting that example for the other.
Exactly, Jack. That's a guy that can come in. And the good thing is he doesn't have to play 40 minutes. He can come in and guard his tail off and then all of a sudden get a blow, come back in. And with the rotation, we've seen that with Coach Kelsey's career. He doesn't want to play 6, 7, 8 guys. He wants to get guys up to 10 and playing as fast as possible and being top 10 in pace of play. And that's what I think this team's, it's going to be exciting just to watch them, how they're going to matriculate and how it's going to come together. So that's, I can't wait to see it for myself.
Let's do this thing. I want to ask you about the front court, but I got some mailbag questions as well, and this one is one that that really applies here too, trying to fit everyone in their roles and everything around that. HP asking, what is Ali Khalifa's on-court role going to be if he's just a 15 minutes per game backup instead of a 25 plus minute per game starter that you're going to run things for consistently?
Well, first of all, I think he's a maybe might be the best big passer on the team. So there's always a spot for that, and he's changed his body, and everybody has seen that he's become transformation in the weight room, and he looks great. So physically, I'm sure that's going to matter because he can play more minutes because he can handle that. And when you're out of shape, you foul more. You don't. That's you're out of position a lot, and so he looks like he's in great shape. And again, it's we'll have to see how it's going to look from a front court standpoint. Everybody's talking about the backcourt and the scoring and Mikael Brown and so on, but they've got some bigs, and I think he's a guy that can facilitate and get them into their zooms, get them into a lot of things that they want to do. And because physically he's changed, that defensively he's not going to be in a situation where he can not so much rim protect, but be in position to be a great helper off the ball, get out and make sure he's hedging and do different things that they want to do defensively.
Yeah, he's a guy that you called him one of the best bigs, passing bigs in the country. I might argue that he is the best passing big in the country. You watch what he did, excuse me, a couple years ago in Mark Pope's system at BYU. I mean, everyone around here is probably more familiar with what Amari Williams was able to do in Pope's system at Kentucky last year. Khalifa obviously not as athletic as an Amari Williams, but he also didn't have the turnover problems that Williams did as well. He's a guy
Mm-hmm.
that makes great decisions. He can shoot the ball. Is just going to add such a different dimension offensively for Louisville to go with the Michael Browns, the Ryan Conwells. Well, you are looking at a lineup where you throw, Brown, Conwell, Hadley, and McNeely and Khalifa, five dead eye shooters at any point, to where it's
Mm-hmm.
going to make it incredibly tough, especially whether you're playing through Khalifa with the zoom actions, trying to stay in front of the guards, or off ball cutting, or just having Brown and Conwell and the guards attack off the bounce themselves. You're going to have to make a lot of tough decisions at the defense because it's going to be really hard to stay in front of Louisville's guards. And it's going to be the tough choice of, do you try to help and take away the layup, or are you going to give up a wide open three to McNeely or Khalifa or Hadley or Woolley or any of these guys, the long list down the line. I think is going to be a fascinating thing that we're going to see defenses have to make that choice and how Louisville's able to just take what the defense gives them all year.
Guards love to play with bigs that understand the game. There's nothing that guards love more. You look, you go to the pros and Joker in Denver, like that. That's a guy that knows how to get you the ball in position to be effective. And when you play with bigs that understand that, so they're not late getting to you on a cut, or they understand they're not frazzled in dribble handoffs. They're not, pressure doesn't bother them. In fact, that they invite that because they know how to get you open. So there's different things that guards love to play with bigs that understand how to pass and understand how to play. So, seeing him on the floor, he's going to be impactful.
So do you think he's going to, and obviously this is an unfair question to ask here in late September, they're barely a week into practice. How do you see it shaking out with both him and Frew and Pryor and Zugris, all of these guys in the front court trying to find minutes?
Yeah, and yeah, look, Roots looks great
Yeah, and
watching
Connie
him,
Roots
and,
too.
yeah,
Yep. I think
he's
he's gonna
another
make a big
guy.
jump.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think he's going to be a guy that is going to be counted on as well. That's the $1 million question, and I could sit here and tell you exactly how it's going to play out if I knew. Case of Pryor obviously coming back, and we saw what he is. He's a guy that can just plays with that motor that's unrelentless, and he's attacking everything and getting him to be comfortable after coming back from a knee injury. And Frew just looks great, and Zubris again. I got to spend a little time with him as well. Another guy that's just physically imposing. So those guys, everybody brings a different dimension, and so you can play different ways. If you're in a situation where you have to be really physical, then you have some guys that can do that. But I think with Khalifa, that's a guy that again, if even from a coaching standpoint, a guy that can pressure release, a guy that can pass, it just calms you down to know you have a guy that you can trust with the ball in his hand.
It's funny. I feel like a lot of times when you break down a team in the preseason, you'll sit there and we'll wax poetically about the depth, kind of like we're doing right now. And you'll say, "Oh, they're gonna have so many guys, 9, 10, 11 guys. How are you gonna get minutes for all these dudes?" And then you wake up in and it's January 26th, and you're sitting there thinking, "Holy crap, they're playing 6 guys. The bench gives you nothing and all that stuff." But knowing one, how Pat Kelsey likes to play with wanting to rotate in as many as 10, 11, 12 guys. And oh, yeah, the talent on this team, it's hard to avoid that trap of the offseason and trying to buy into everything. But when you see everything on paper, you legitimately think they're going to play 10, 11, 12 dudes. It's because there's that much talent on the roster. And with the pace they want to play, you need to play that many guys to keep everyone fresh.
Yeah, and look, it's all speculation. I've been around college teams and having coached 6 years of Division One basketball. Like you hear the pundits and other people, and not you, Jack, because you're always spot on. But like and you hear people speculate, and you're like, well, this is probably different than what we're going to do, but it's still going to be effective because you kind of have the identity of your team, and nobody knows it better than the coaching staff and even the people involved and the players and the support staff. They know what's happening inside those walls, and no matter what. But you look at this and you see his track record of playing that many guys, and he has depth, and he's talked about that. And look, I think that's the most effective way to get these guys to be impactful and to have the success that he wants. Because man, they can just wear you down. And I think it's going to be a situation where he does a really good job of getting guys to buy in.
Well, let's change gears a little bit. Got a couple questions from Armor Abs Crab on Twitter. That's a great SpongeBob reference. that might go over your head there, Coach. But
no, listen, Emery, she doesn't watch it as much anymore, but I SpongeBob is good, and there's a lot of adult humor in there too. So
yes, like you appreciate it differently when you grow up.
No doubt.
Yeah. Take that. My parents hate SpongeBob from my brother and I as a kid. So I take that as a win. But how will the UofL UK game look different from a preparation standpoint with the game being so early in the season?
Yeah, look, it's when I was there, obviously it was New Year's, and it was something that was a different animal because you're practicing so much. It's always looming. And now I don't think it's going to have both teams. Look, it's in November, I believe November 11th, and I think both teams are going to have played some games, whether it's exhibition, gone through a bit of a test before they get to that. So it's not going to be like they're just going to be green and they don't know who they are yet. They still won't have formed their complete identity, and they won't know everything about their teams, but they'll have a good idea about where guys are and what they can do. So the preparation they're going to go into it, and both teams, I don't know if you're aware, Jack, like even today, Coach Kelsey talked about the supposed run-in between him and Mark Pope, and he made light of that stuff and said, "Look."
All right, so what was the quote here? Because I'm gonna just raise my hand and say for full disclosure, we're recording this at about 7:40 on September 25th, and before I got home from work and jotted down about a little bit of prep, it was full on staring at NHL replay systems since about 9 a.m. So what was the quote? I do need to hear.
It really was. It was more of a rumor than a quote. There was something said. Ken Spencer reported that there had been like a dust up or on the recruiting trail. They had words, and Coach Kelsey spoke today, I believe, at the St. X Trinity precursor to their football game, and just talked about, look, there's no bad blood between the two of them. That he respects him as a coach, and made a couple jokes that were, again, that's him. He's got a great media savvy and so on. But basically, allude to the fact that, I respect him, but we're both competitors. We both want to win. He wants to rip my face off. I want to rip his face off, and we both, want to win games. And so that was basically the extent of it, saying that he respects Coach Pope and he thinks he's a great coach and great program, and says Louisville's a great program, and they want to just beat the crap out of each other.
It's one of those things that I don't know if it's true or not, but I just desperately want it to be true, just from a rivalry chaos standpoint, of Pat Kelsey and Mark Pope standing outside of Tay Kenny's apartment, verbally jabbing at each other at midnight in Atlanta. Like it's such a perfect Louisville Kentucky rivalry story. It's just hilarious on any level. Let me ask you
Yeah,
this: who would win in a fight between PK and Pope?
I'm not putting any. But listen, Mark Pope's got the me doing all these boxing classes.
Yeah, he's got he's
Pope,
got he's got
Pope's
he's
got the
got the
reach.
length.
He's got the reach. But I'll tell you what, Kelsey moves pretty well. You watch him catching punts and doing some other things. Look, he can get underneath you, and that's the biggest thing. Bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah,
So
you think if Pat can get inside the reach a little bit there, that's where you get some body blows in, right?
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. Could be like Crawford and Canelo. So who knows? Which was a great fight, by the way. I don't know if you. I'm a big boxing fan, and I watched it. What a great fight!
I've gone down the rabbit hole recently of I don't know how it end up in my TikTok feed, but in my algorithm. But now I'm getting like these recaps of like strategics or strategy of like all these classic fights of like Ali Frazier, Ali
Wow.
Foreman, all this stuff, and it's fascinating. I love that stuff.
I hope that because you mentioned it right now in the podcast, I hope that gets into my feeds because I haven't seen those. And I want to.
I'll send you a couple of them. They're
That's
pretty
it.
good.
Then
They're
they'll,
really
then they'll,
good.
then they'll be
Yeah.
popping up left and right. So that's perfect.
All right. Let me ask you this. This is going to reignite something down the road that we talked about last year that I want to get to, but I'll start with this from Armor Abs Crab as well. Do you think the Louisville Kentucky game is going to stay this early moving forward, or are they going to look to try to move the date again after this year?
You know what? I think people could say it's experimental, but I think they understand that. Now, I think it's going to the gravitas of the game because both programs are going to be really, really good. Maybe they're going to move it to that type of situation, but I like that it's at this time and it's really the marquee game played early. I personally, having coached in these games and understanding it, I like where it's at and I think it's a good thing because look, regardless, you have that in the middle of the season, and it is a detractor. There's a lot of things that deal with it, and you want to get going, and you want to really focus on your conference schedule and those type of things. And it's a huge game, but I think I like where it's at. We see so many big games now and early in the season. We obviously have the Champions Class. We have all kinds of big games early in the season. Obviously, this is a huge rivalry game, but I think it's good staying where it's at, personally. What are
I
your
like
thoughts?
it. I like it from the standpoint of if you're going to play it early in the season, you have to do it when it's not competing against football. And that
Right.
was the biggest issue.
Of
Like
course. Yeah.
last season they did a really good job. They did the weekend that was in between the college football conference championships and before the CFP started. That was a great weekend. This weekend Kentucky's playing Indiana that weekend, so that's not
Mm-hmm.
available. And like Louisville has Tennessee on a date. Memphis and Cincinnati as well. But it didn't work out in December this year, so that you move it up
Right.
to November. But if you're going to play it in November, you have to do it on a Tuesday night like you're doing when there's no NFL or major college football going on. That is the best way to market it if you're going to play it early in the season in November. That being said, we've now seen the ACC move back from 20 to 18 games. Louisville's playing Baylor on Valentine's Day this year. If you're looking from, and I understand this is different from looking from it as a coach and like when's the best time for this game and the distractions and all that, but if you're looking for it through the lens of a fan or in this case kind of as a media, how can you market this game the best? And I would argue the Louisville Kentucky game should be marketed in the same light as a Duke Carolina because it is right up there in terms of rivalry, with how intense the rivalry is with the Duke Carolina. Playing that game in December or November does the game a disservice. And now that you're seeing the ACC drop a couple of games in conference play, you're seeing Louisville be willing to play Baylor in February. You've seen Kentucky, yes, it was Calipari, not Mark Pope, play Gonzaga in February a couple of years ago. Why can we not get it figured out to put that game on a weekend in February after the Super Bowl?
I mean, you're not wrong. I think you could really spin it or argue from either side. And I think the biggest thing is now moving forward, we know both these programs are going to be really good, and that's the biggest thing. So now over the last 10 years, it's been the disparity between the programs. It was like an afterthought for a lot of people around the country, and now it's going to be must see watching and must see TV. So I kind of think it's a good way to get the college basketball season started with a game this big, and I think to have a big game like that at the beginning of the year is great, and I just think it's in a good spot.
Yeah, and
Every team for the inside.
college basketball's done a much better job of getting bigger games early in the season. I love big games early in the season. But when you're looking at Louisville, Kentucky, which for the two fan bases, that is their biggest game of the season. Not one of the biggest games of the season, the biggest games of the season. I would like to see that game played at a time when both teams are peaking. I don't think it's coincidence that so many of the games haven't been very well played because you're playing it in, December when both teams are still trying to figure each other themselves out. I mean, how many times have we talked about how Rick Pitino's teams peak in February? Calipari's teams peaked late in the season. They're just not the same teams. What was that?
Or sometimes after the season.
Yeah. Yes. but even last year, I mean, yeah, Pat Kelsey's team last year, they hadn't peaked yet when Louisville, Kentucky played. If they play that game January and February, and that was a very entertaining, very fun game in Lexington, but I think it could have been even another level if you play that game a month later when Louisville really had things rolling in terms of, a great finish and all that stuff. I don't know if Louisville still would have won the game or not, just because Kentucky was a really damn good team themselves. But I think get the two teams playing when they're playing their best. And yes, have games like the Kansas exhibition, playing Tennessee early in the year. Kentucky has the Champions Classic, things like that. You still play those games early in the year, but reserve your biggest game for when you're playing your best basketball, or rather want to be playing your best basketball, and the nation is fully tuning into college basketball after the football season ends.
Jack, I mean, we can almost argue from every standpoint, and
I'll move on. I know. This has been such a sore subject for me of wanting this for years, and I know you disagree with me on it. So I saw the opportunity.
That's the beauty of it. I don't think that's my biggest thing is disagree without being disagreeable is
right,
and that's the way it should be. Those are your thoughts. You believe it. I respect that.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I agree with you. I do love that it's on a Tuesday. They can really showcase it from that standpoint. Let's ask this one on the ACC schedule, or rather, let's do this one first before we get there. Other than the UK game, what is the non-conference game that is the most intriguing for UofL?
Look, that gauntlet of what they have, and with Tennessee and with Memphis and Indiana and so on. I think a lot of people are looking forward to. Look, it's an exhibition game, but I just like to see the Kansas game. I mean, it's an exhibition, but my gosh, that's something that it's new. It used to be even a few years ago when I was coaching in Division I that there's close scrimmages and it wasn't a big deal, or you'd stop and be able to talk. Now it's game like. It's like playing a preseason game or an exhibition or something like that, and it's to me it's going to be wild. It's at the Yum, and you've got a really good Kansas team with a possible lottery pick and so on. So I think it's going to be great to play in front of just a raucous crowd in the Yum Center. I think it's neat to have that. So I know that's probably, Tennessee game looks great, and there's a bunch of other ones, but I'm really kind of stoked to see them in an exhibition and watch. And I think you're going to see a lot of people think it's just going to be vanilla, or they're just not going to do a lot of the stuff that they're going to do in the season. I disagree. I think it's going to be kind of shaping against an opponent like that, what they're going to it's going to be a precursor to what this team's going to look like.
I think there's three different ways to look at it. Number one is
Don't disagree with me, Jack.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Jack.
I know, but number one, on October 24th, we're going to get two possible top 5 picks playing against each other in two legendary programs. That's pretty fucking awesome. like that's a blast. Like, when in the history of college basketball could you sit there and say that sentence? Never. Mm-hmm. Do I wish the game actually counted? Absolutely. But as a college basketball fan and as someone who grew up following Louisville and rooting for them and all that, like, that's a blast, man. It's Louisville and Kansas in October. That's awesome.
No doubt. No doubt.
That's going to be a blast. There's that angle. There's the second angle of I love that you're seeing these regional rivalries coming back. You're seeing Louisville play Cincinnati. You're seeing
Hmm.
them play Indiana. You're seeing them play Memphis. Those are the games that, especially the Cincinnati and Memphis ones, that you grew up on. Like that was before, especially before the Louisville Kentucky game was played every year. Those were the rivalries, Memphis and Cincinnati. So to see those two teams back on the schedule, they should play those teams and IU every single year. And I'm really excited to see those games back. Tennessee is going to be a gauntlet also. The Clash of Styles is going to be fantastic. But there's really only, I feel like there's one that just takes the cake of all of it. And it has to be going to Fayetteville and facing John Calipari and Kenny Payne in Arkansas, right?
No doubt, no doubt. Look, I didn't mention that one. Obviously, that one stands out. I'm excited about how they get off to the start with Kansas. But yeah, the look, it's there's so many storylines in that one. I mean, you could just write a book about how much you have it as far as that one goes, and to be able to go in there maybe and to beat them, and that would just be a phenomenal win for Louisville.
Yeah, that would be a huge one because Arkansas is going to have a really, really talented roster as well. So that's going to be a fun one. I'm sure that one with the coaching side as well, Louisville fans will really want to get that game
No doubt,
for
no
a
doubt.
lot of reasons. Let's do this one from again HP. What are some dark horse teams that could be quality wins in the ACC for Louisville this year besides Duke and NC State?
I think overall the league's going to be better. Look, Virginia with Coach Odom, they're going to be much improved. It's going to be a complete. It's not going to be your father's Virginia. You know, it's going to be a completely different type of style and play. I think Virginia's going to be better. We'll wait and see what Miami looks like under Jay Lucas. We'll see what that team looks like. You know, they're going to have a talent infusion just like Virginia is, and I think there's a couple other teams that could Georgia Tech is another team that could be better. But I'm interested to see how NC State looks as well. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see what Will Wade does with that squad. And obviously, people in Tobacco Road are going to be a little nervous with what he's going to be doing down there, especially with what he's going to bring in and his track record. So I think the ACC is going to be much improved this year.
I love the trio of Darian Williams, Trey Holloman, and Taryn Arsenault. That's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be cool to see Will Wade try to inject some energy into NC State in a similar way to what Pat Kelsey was able to do last year at Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, NC State not 8-24 bad, but they were pretty close to that last year. It was for a pretty proud program. It's been some
Mm-hmm.
down times for them, so they're going to try to get that shot of energy as well. I do agree. I think Louisville and Duke are kind of clear 1-2. I think NC State's third, but you took everyone I had on my list. It was Virginia with Ryan Odom. Love Dallin Hall. Love the Malik Thomas ad. Ugana and Yenzo, who Louisville fans remember at Kentucky, still has a ton of
Mm-hmm.
potential. He hasn't really realized it yet there, but he could be a really good shot blocker, rebounder type, lob threat as well if he can develop into that. Miami, I think Jay Lucas has added a lot of talent there with Erdis Uday from Kansas, Trey Donaldson, who has NCAA tournament pedigree with Michigan, Malik Renew as well to give some veteran flair with the talented freshman class. And then SMU and Notre Dame, I don't know if they're NCAA tournament teams, but Boopy Miller and Marcus Burton can absolutely ball.
No
and,
doubt.
those are two dudes that can go out and just win games for you. So I do agree. I think the league's going to be better this year. I still don't think it's back to where it was in the mid 2010s, what the ACC expects to
Right.
be in terms of kind of being
It's
what
not
the
there
SEC
yet.
was
No.
last year. But if you could step up, and that's why Louisville beefed up the non-conference schedule with all the games we were talking about, Baylor as
Right.
well in February, to where they're not putting themselves in a spot where if you don't,
Yeah, if the ACC is
yeah,
not what it's supposed to be, they're still going to be fine because of
yeah,
what they've done non-conference.
yeah,
No doubt.
where honestly their seed line got docked a lot because
Mm-hmm.
there just weren't a lot of quality ones. I think there's going to
No
be more
doubt.
quality ones out there throughout
Agreed.
the year, but Louisville's gonna have to get some work done early again though because can we're talking about a lot of what ifs with Virginias and the Miamis and all that stuff. You got to see how those teams pan out. Carolina's a good question as well. How do they replace
Oh
RJ
yeah,
Davis
no
and
doubt.
Elliot Cadeau? I like Kyan Evans, but I do worry a little bit about them. The front court should be better with Vasar, Caleb Wilson, Jaron Stevenson coming in from Alabama. So it's
It's later in the season, and it's gonna be interesting to see just how many of these games as the season goes on that Louisville's favored in the
yeah.
ACC. It'll be interesting to see if they are what we think they are, and that's going to be fascinating as well.
So looking at the Bart Torvik page right now, they got them at 23-8 with a 13-5 record in the ACC. Would you sign up, or rather, do you think Louisville fans would? What would the temperature be if it's 23-8, 13-5?
It's wild to think that the fans would be a little disappointed with something like that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what what Coach Kelsey has infused into this program in just a year and a half's time. It's great. So I think, yeah, people are expecting them to be close to 27, 28 wins, and probably maybe couple, maybe 2 or 3 losses in the ACC. I think if you took the pulse and the temperature of fans around here, I think that's what those expectations are. But again, I know how hard this is, and I know how hard it is to win Division I basketball games. And 13-5 in the ACC, no matter if it's down or not, is still going to put you in position to if we look at that.
And I promise I didn't ask that question of trying to like temper expectations or anything like that. It was purely I pulled up the Torvik and I was that's kind of interesting. Yeah, it is also worth noting, going game by game, Torvik only has Louisville losing 4 games in there. So the way it gets to 23-8 is it takes all the toss-up games, and at a certain percentage, so you win some of them, lose some of them is kind of how it goes.
Right.
But if you're going purely by game, it would have them at 27-4. And I think 15-2, I believe that's right, or 16-2 in the ACC. That would be if you're doing that, you're probably going to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed come selection Sunday.
Right that.
But one more before we get out of here, scheduling wise. I enjoyed the schedule talk. I always have. But
you always have, Jack. I know that about you. Can't wait for you to quiz me on tournament teams and who's in, who's out. Can't wait for that at the end of the year.
Oh, I love it. I can't get there soon enough.
Right now. I know that.
But Louisville, the ACC schedule, we talked about this at length last season, and on my part, I probably over-talked about it because Louisville ran through the gauntlet of all the road games in the middle of the year. But it is another interesting quirk of Louisville has 9 ACC home games, and 7 of them are between January 6th and February 9th. They only have 2 home games after February 9th. That's just weird. Like I'm not gonna overreact and say like, oh, can they go on the road and win all these games like I did last year? Because egg in my face. They steamrolled everyone, which I would rather them have done, obviously. But it's just weird that did not have many home games after for the last month plus of the season.
Yeah, it's quirky. Sometimes there's a lot of mitigating factors sometimes that go into it, and sometimes there's requests that's sent in by administration about certain things about. Whether there's something going on in town or something to do with the women's team. But there's a lot of factors sometimes. It's not just, oh, wow, why did this happen? Sometimes schools are involved in some capacity, and having seen it on the inside that goes on. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get a schedule and you're like, wow, this is surprising. And we only have 2 home games after, February, what was it, 9th?
Yeah.
And yeah, they're probably surprised by it. But you know what? No matter what comes along, coaches are used to those type of things, and they're just they'll spin it any way they can for their players and make them road warriors and make them believe. And certainly, a person that can do that is Coach Kelsey.
It'll be a fun January, early February at the Yum Center. Louisville has a stretch of 10 games where they have 7 home games.
Yeah,
so that'll be a lot of fun.
There, yeah, it'll be great to see the downtown bustling again, and everybody excited about that. That's it's good to see.
It will absolutely be good to see it. It's going to be a blast of a season coming up, and we can't wait to talk about it all year long. For Coach Lieberman, I am Jack Grossman. We'll be back here pretty soon. I know Coach said you're going to practice soon.
Yeah, I'll probably head out there next week and get a bird's eye view of everything. Yep.
Hell yeah. So we look forward to getting the scouting report on that for sure. But we'll be back here periodically leading up towards obviously Kansas, October 24th, and the season rolling. It can't get here soon enough. They're practicing. We're close. You can almost feel it as college basketball, Louisville basketball, going to be back soon. Coach, appreciate the time as always, and we'll catch you next time.